You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next, the May 24th meeting of the LaPorte County Planning Commission. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
I'd like to call the May Plan Commission meeting to order. Let's rise and Rita, would you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ashley, can I have a roll call?
Adam Karanka,
Present.
Rita Beatty,
Here.
Rich Marzinski,
Present.
Earl Cunningham,
Present.
Glenn Minnick,
Here.
Harold Parker,
Present.
John Carr, Azad Shahal, Anthony Hendricks, Jeff Wright.
No quorum?
Yes.
I'd like to call for a motion for approval of the February 22nd minutes of the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'd like to call for approval of the May agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, to our first petition. Petition number 1. Petitioners Hester Mueller and Jack Allen, Hester J.W. Mueller Trustee Trust, represented by Jim Kyle of Kyle and Associates, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission for a 19-lot subdivision to be known as Oak Ridge Estates.
Notice adequate.
Good evening. I'd start by pointing out Mr. Kyle has much better hair than I do. I am, in fact, Christopher Willoughby, Brady Nelson, and Janes, and Mr. Kyle did, as you will see from the plans and the submission, much of the heavy lifting here. I'm here tonight on behalf of Dr. Hester Mueller as the trustee of the trust that is the title holder of the subject property, and as you indicated, a petition for seeking approval of a primary plat for this subdivision has been submitted, and this has turned out to be a labor of love, as we were discussing and reminded. That this was a concept all the way back to 1982 that Dr. Hester Mueller has thought about doing with this property, and it's come to light, and so we've complied. As I read and certainly defer to your attorney as well as your building department, this is a check the box somewhat process. There's a lot to fill in here. There are a lot of obligations to have here that have to be fulfilled in order to be prepared to even get to this point, right? There is a concept plan review process where the plans are submitted and those are gone over with staff as well as relevant departments. We wouldn't be here placed on this agenda if things weren't in order and submitted as we should be. So what you have before you is a plan for a 19-lot subdivision, a property that is currently zoned R1B. It's, the intention is to have residential housing. Right now there aren't any restrictions or covenants, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward, again, with a lot of detail, and I don't mean to minimize, and I know that you have questions, and I will defer on the technical questions to Mr. Kyle and answer any of the legal or process questions that I may. But we do feel, and one of the important things that I think that came after the original submission was that there were some soil borings and some results that came back to show that the lots will be able to sustain and have septic systems, viable septic systems, and I believe that the health department has or will have something to say about that, and I will also I know Mr. Kyle has some additional details as well. At this point, as you can see from this petition, we're also not requesting any modifications or waivers from any requirements of the code. And otherwise, we believe that we are in order and in compliance with the overall requirements and standards as submitted. At this point, I will yield to questions you might have of me and or Mr. Kyle, more importantly, in terms of the technical requirements.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Does city sewer run out that way? No? Okay, just wondering.
Yeah, not that we're aware. City sewer is the question.
Okay.
You probably need to identify yourself, not that most don't know you.
Okay, Jim Kyle, surveyor, here in LaPorte.
The question was whether city sewer run by the property.
No, there's no city sewer.
Okay.
It stops short of the property, and we did discuss this at the plat committee. And the soil boring reports were submitted to the health department.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is Amanda from the health department. I have reviewed all the soil reports, and all those lots can take a conventional system and ground system. There are a few that will need perimeter drains, but septic systems out there won't be an issue at all.
I didn't understand any of that.
Could you have the mic? Your mic.
Yes, I think for some clarity with regard to the drains, I do.
Please speak into the mic though, so he can hear you.
Well, I don't want to speak and ask Amanda to repeat. I don't think everybody could hear because she did have some other details in addition to the soil. The septic systems won't be a problem. I don't think anybody heard clearly your comment about the drains that might be required on it.
So there's just a handful of the lots that will require perimeter drains surrounding the septic system to lower the seasonal high water table, but that's all gravity and it won't have an effect. It looks like all of those systems will work fine for septics. All of those lots will be fine with septics.
Do we know which specific?
How much runoff are you gonna get?
We're gonna have approximately about 10% more than what we have now, and that would include the house and of course the driveway. So, and of course that whole area is all trees. And we can, and I was thinking we can actually build into the restrictions and covenants that there would only be a certain number of those trees removed, mainly around the house and of course the driveway and of course the septic area, and maybe a pool also.
So where does your runoff go after it leaves the place?
I'm sorry?
Where's your runoff go after it leaves the subdivision?
What I thought we could do, of course, down along 100 West, it all runs into that swale that's along there, and of course down into that pond. But over on Park Road, I thought what we could do is provide a little retention area on each lot, up, say, near the house, that would gather that runoff, which, like I say, is probably about 10%, and we could just hold that in that lot, like I say, into a small retention area.
Yeah.
Do we have the restrictions on this?
I'm sorry?
Are there no ditches along 100 now on the east side?
Well, there's that drain along there now that runs from about where the road curves on the south end there, all the way up to that pond. Now that's handling all that existing water that's coming down now.
What size of the houses are you gonna put on here?
We haven't really talked about it, but you're looking, the minimum that you're gonna build today is probably $400,000 or $500,000, which would probably be about a, I don't know, 1,500, maybe 2,000 square foot house. I figure $200 a foot, 4,000 would be 800,000. So I don't know, we really haven't talked that much about that. But I know that they're planning on putting up some nice houses.
I guess we have to listen to some of the people if they have concerns first.
Yeah, that makes most sense to me. So if you gentlemen have a seat, please. We'll call for any remonstrators for or against. And a couple of things, just to be clear, as we work through the remonstrators, through any of these petitions, we're going to limit to 3 minutes, as well as each remonstrator comes up, provide new details or new concerns. Thank you. So if you could, state your name and address for the record.
Oh, there we go. My name is Jessica Sheeler. I live at 1866 North, 100 West. My concern, one of my concerns is I'm assuming we're going to be pushing as family houses in the subdivision, and the only house on Park Road currently houses a sex offender. So I feel like a lot of families are not going to want to live in a house that close. Another thing I have concerns about is the fact that the EPA says each American household uses about 300 gallons of water per day. So that's times 365, that's 109,000 gallons of water, times 19 houses, that's over 2 million gallons of water. So is this going to be pulled out of that pond that's there? Is it going to dry up that area? So those are kind of some of the things I have. Is that going to also like raise the taxes up around our area with $500,000 houses? I mean, Park Street is not known for its rich side of town. So is that going to raise that or do anything with Park Street? Yeah, that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eric Wallenius, 1766 North, 100 West. I'm directly across the street. So,
Excuse me, sir. Could you pull the mic closer to you?
sorry,
Please?
Eric Wallenius, 1766 North, 100 West. So I'm directly across the street from where you're proposing to put up these houses. Where are these driveways going to be located? Are they on 100 or are they off a park? Where are you proposing to put the driveways? Each house is going to have its own driveway? Is that what you're saying?
So the way the lots are drawn here, it looks like that each lot's going to dump out to either Park Road, Severs Road, or 100 West.
So all the way around?
All the way around.
Can we get the
So you were just talking about this runoff. That drain, all that runoff runs from that ditch, runs into my property. So what concerns do I have with the sewer or the septic system overflows and all that coming onto my property? Is there gonna be anything to take care of that? Because right now, all that drainage, that ditch runs and it's pitched into my property, goes underneath the street, and then comes onto my property. So if you have runoff, then I'm gonna be stuck with it.
Where's it go after it leaves your property?
It goes into a pond that somebody built 70 years ago. So that pond that's on that property is my property.
Where's your property?
1766.
Guess it's this pond. Keep referring to.
I'm guessing that's where
It's this pond.
Ashley, while they're looking at this, is there a chance you can put this drawing up on the TV?
Runs underneath that road, comes into my land and then goes right into that. Stapler down.
Is that pond big enough to hold water or not? Or is it additional water like this, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big pond, but it's been, the water table's actually been going down. That's another concern I have. You're gonna put all these houses on wells. I'm on a well, my well's 100 foot, and usually around July, I start having water problems. Not enough water. So That's one of my concerns. You're gonna put all these houses on wells. The numbers that she just told you, you know, am I gonna have more problems with my well? So, and I have 2 separate wells on my property, and they both, you know, come the middle of July, they both at times have lack of water. So, those are concerns that I
They
have.
got a water problem.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Finley. I live at 936 West, 200 North. There's 2 houses on, we call it the triangle. I'm on one end and then I have a neighbor on the far end. So, and my house is on, I guess you would consider it Severs Road. I have a lot of concerns. You know, I bought my house 26 years ago. Private, I mean, I get that somebody else owned behind us, but this subdivision is gonna be in my backyard now. And, you know, same thing, we have a issue with water. My house, is my yard, I should say, I own an acre. So my yard kind of slopes and then my house. And so what's gonna happen, you know, I've got woods on all 3 sides of me. What's gonna happen when there's a house here and here and here and at the corner, and then what's gonna be behind me? I mean, what's coming my way? You know, I've been there 26 years, never did I think that, you know, somebody was gonna put 19, 20 houses behind me, you know? I don't know if anybody knows this now, but there is tree cutting going on right now. We can hear the saws buzzing every single day. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter. How far are these houses gonna be from my property? You know, are they gonna put a fence up while they're building for 5 years? You know, how long is this gonna take to build all this? You know, how long is my life gonna be interrupted by this? The sewer system, are we gonna be annexed? Is that corner gonna be annexed where we have to tie in or have the opportunity or the decisions to make in relative to what's being offered steps away from my back door? And not even to mention the wildlife. My God, the turkey, the deer, the rat, everything is back there. And about 4 or 5 years ago, they cut so many hundreds and hundreds of year-old trees. But what's going to happen to my property value, my taxes? You know, LaPorte is known for lower taxes. You know, if I wanted to pay high taxes, I would have bought a house in Portage or Valpo. You know, I've worked in Valpo. I've been an insurance agent for 37 years, and I would have loved to live in Valpo. But because of taxes, I could not afford it. That's why I came to LaPorte. Same thing with the retention pond and the drainage. I mean, I spent almost $50,000 to remodel my basement. And so what happens when I wake up one morning and, you know, I've got a foot of water? That's not covered by insurance. I know that because I've been in insurance for 37 years. I know that that's not covered. The traffic, already the traffic is horrible. Everybody knows the traffic going down to the industrial park. So that's definitely going to increase, not only with people that live there, but visitors and, you know, and just living their life. But I didn't catch what construction company was doing this. Do we know any of that?
We'll cover that when we have folks come up to answer to all this remonstrance.
Okay.
And just
Okay.
so you're aware, we're at the 3-minute mark, so if you've got anything else, let's make it quick.
Okay. Yep. I think that about covers it. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Brandon Williams, 805 West 200 North. I'm directly across the street, Park Road, Park Street. Tees right into my house. My concerns, well, just coming here now, the original notice that was sent out, it says that the subdivision contains 25.701 acres. Today's agenda, it says 28.492. So it's a difference of almost 3 acres from what the general public was told about to coming to this meeting today. Like the wildlife concerns. I've got 15, 20 deer a day that walk through my yard into that woods across the street. Raccoon, turkeys, and then, like Mr. Mrzinski asked, does city water run out there? Well, what stops the gentleman from saying, you know what, let's not do sewer and septic, let's run city water out there, let's annex that? What stops that? It's undeveloped property. It's the grab that the city wants, right? They want undeveloped property. Why? Why boost our property taxes? I bought the house 2 years ago from a couple that lived there for 60 years. My house has been there since 1860, the original part. What happens when my well's contaminated? What happens when it dries up? There's no answers. Except for what's the dollar sign of this new home going in? What's the increased tax revenue? That's all that everybody worries about. Except for us little guys. What's to stop the city from saying, you know what? Let's do that. We'll go ahead and annex that. Then we'll go ahead and proceed with the northern portion of a corridor and have that be the dividing line. Because guess what? There's 30 acres behind me. There's more undeveloped land. Then there's tree farm behind that. More undeveloped land. Where does it stop? That's all I got.
Any more remonstrance? Either for or against? Okay. Need you to come up to the mic for the record, please.
When is all of this projected to start?
We'll have all these folks answer that then.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Willoughby? Mr. Kyle? Whomever wants to answer all this? Okay.
As always, I appreciate the feedback and understand how important it is. It's rare that I hear arguments that improvements, because it improves everybody, but I understand the points are well taken of how it affects their households, and to those, many of those things we don't have answers. I can't answer as to taxes and how it affects wildlife, other than my client and Mr. Kyle, at their request, has taken great efforts to check the boxes that are required from the subdivision ordinance. Many of the things that they're discussed are required, and there's a lot of process left. So I also want to emphasize that just because the subdivision is approved, let's say you're leaning that way and you approve it, we still have the secondary step. Then we still have to get building permits, and we're going to have to demonstrate what the plans are. And to answer, there isn't a set builder. These are going to be lots that are sold, and again, the intention to have quality homes. But there's a lot of process. So many of these things, while they're very important and they're not to be overlooked by us, they're probably going to be answered at later dates when Mr. Poulin and his office takes us to task on each of the requirements, making sure. And so, as I represented at the outset, which doesn't necessarily mean anything to those that have spoken tonight, is we're not asking for any exceptions or waivers, which means if it gets approved that way, the only way to change or to expand or to cut into setbacks or go all the way to property lines, assuming that the BZA would even allow that, is to either come back and redo this or amend it or get variances, right? And so there's a lot of process, and obviously they have to take what I say with a grain of salt. I want to point out some other things that on this acreage here that we have on this, the parcels that are subject to this petition. By square footage, we could probably double the amount of units there, assuming everything else worked out with septic. So they're not looking, and I got to be honest, a lot of developers that I've represented, that's not always the case, right? There's money to be made, and this isn't just a money-making endeavor or whatever the thoughts. I've heard about the rich end of town or those kinds of things. It could be doubled. So one thing that's not to be lost is these lots are intentionally bigger, trying to take into account the lay of the land, the water tables, the runoffs, but making sure that it all complies. And again, I take seriously because I don't believe that the health department is, even though they might, Mr. Kyle are going to cut him a break, or Mr. Poulin's office aren't going to cut him a break on the requirements. So many, in my mind, many of those concerns will be handled in the process days ahead. And I encourage everybody to participate. If we're approved tonight, there's a secondary, right? There's another level to this. I'd also like to point out that the zoning is R1B. And some of the things that we've discussed tonight are the homes that we don't want there. But it could be agricultural. That's permitted, and we don't even have to ask permission for that. We could keep horses and livestock on that property. Clear it all. We don't need to have permission. We could build recreational areas. We could build a school. We could build museums and civic buildings and public utilities. So those are the kinds of things that could be done, but don't fit the character of the neighborhood, as we just heard. So I to the extent any technical questions you'd like to have answered, I certainly will defer to Mr. Kyle, but otherwise I would respectfully request that you approve our permission as submitted.
Can I still ask questions?
Absolutely.
Were drainage calculations provided at the department head meeting?
Yes, we did discuss drainage at plat committee, and like Mr. Kyle stated, he estimated 10% additional runoff. Now with the increased lot size, so there's less density. There'll be a lot of yard and a lot of clear ground and trees for water to percolate into the ground. And then there's also, I believe, on the set of plans, drainage easements along, is that the rear, where there could be swales for water to go into to be stored temporarily until it percolates down. And then there's also retention areas listed as well.
Okay, so somebody presented the math on this 25 acres that said there's this much drainage there now, and after we build this out, we're gonna have this drainage. It's been quantified.
That was discussed at plat review, and if there's been any changes to those calculations or exactly what those numbers were when we went over them, I would allude to Mr. Kyle, but we did spend a great deal of time going over that.
Okay, so it's been engineered per se, that we have a handle on where the drainage at, where we want to put it, and how much is there now and how much will be developed.
Correct.
Okay, so another question, at what point in the process can limiting the amount of tree cutting be done? At what point in the process does that happen?
Well,
There's a lot of trees out there.
I would defer to your counsel, and as this petition was submitted, it represents that no covenants or restrictions are going to be included. However, I would submit that at the next, we have the ability, when we apply for this secondary approval, if we're approved, that we could, and those have been discussed. Because of the nature, you heard the price tag that is contemplated, so it makes sense to potentially have. And, going a little bit further, I believe that, there are some improvements or there's zoning, or building code requirements and some of the standards that are set forth in the county that I think will account for these, whether there's a limit or not. There's nothing contemplated, there's nothing before you. Do I think that we still have another opportunity to do that if we so choose, or can this plan commission mandate that? Yes, I don't know how you quantify it at this meeting.
I have one last question. The last sentence here on R1B, it says the district is intended for areas where community sewer is available or scheduled in the near future. Now, I understand, maybe I heard wrong, but sewer is not available, so we're going septics. So is it scheduled in the near future for water?
Not that we're aware, and we don't control that. So the zoning is what this property was tagged with. So
So it's not readily available, and we don't know if it's scheduled in the near future.
These lots were set up for septic and soil boring tests were done?
I want to clarify though the categories, because R1B is intended to be more dense than the subdivision they're proposing. That's why they probably fit into R1A, wouldn't it, Jim, with the lot size and density? Yeah, so R1B, you can put more, they could conceivably put more houses in there. That's what that phrase is intended. But with this density, that really doesn't apply to this project. So the code's overly inclusive, if that makes sense.
So the density is about 0.8.
Yeah, but the R1B takes into consideration a higher density. Okay,
Up to a 1.
yeah, whatever it is, yeah. Okay, yeah. So if you look at the schedule of uses, and Chris ran through some of them, just because that sentence is in there doesn't mean that necessarily applies here, because we don't have the density that a normal R1B would have. Okay?
It's not necessarily.
Correct.
This subdivision, though, has its own individual uniqueness, because if this was out on any other county road, each one of these lots would have to be 200 feet of frontage. And you have lots that are less than 100. So
No, Glenn, that's the nature of the subdivision.
It is, but most subdivisions provide their own roads with their own entrance. They don't provide a county road as the inventory for the road. So you're gonna have a lot of driveways, more dense driveways. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm just saying, on Park Street, you do have that kind of density when you come towards LaPorte. But on Severs Road, that's a lot more driveways that people are gonna, see cars coming and going. And I mean, typically you would have an internal road. I like the way it's done with the external road because of the erosion problems on this whole property. But I think you have to at least think about whether we should give that many lots to this subdivision or not, or whether they should have to conform a little bit more to the road frontage requirement that the county has. That's the only question. And it would kind of quiet the neighborhood, because you would be shrinking it. I mean, you're not going to have a lot of expense with this because you're not putting roads in. So the developer still wins, even if there's a few less lots. Just a thought.
Another fact, in that area up there, they're calling for 39 district on that water shortage they have up there for fires and stuff. That have nothing to do with this project, that water and up 39?
No, because this is not.
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
Okay.
Will there be like a homeowners association with covenants and such things?
So that gets to my point on the covenants and restrictions. As submitted, there are not. As contemplated since that initial submission, I would anticipate that if you were inclined to approve it, it's not required. But again, because of the nature of the homes, as discussed by the price tag alone, it's going to make sense. And it is contemplated, and so that, going back to Mr. Wright's question also, the ability to have those submitted and be considered as part of this can be done at the secondary stage. But I'm not, unless, Mr. Kyle says otherwise, we don't have the authority to commit to those, but it is contemplated.
Any further questions from the board?
I just have something that I'd just like to ask, I guess, more towards the attorney. But, I appreciate all the work that does go into these subdivisions, and I know that there's a lot of expense and a lot of time. to create any of them, and LaPorte desperately needs this housing development for sure. But I guess my thought process goes back to a couple months ago. So my question is, we had another subdivision before us that we turned away, so that we thought met all the criteria. And I know we're under the chapters here where we have, if you meet all of our criteria, we should give a favorable recommendation versus, a non-favorable. So I guess my question to the attorney is, how do we decipher the fact that we're meeting all the criteria possibly here this evening versus meeting the criteria 2 months ago? See where I'm going with that?
Yeah. So the plan commission is advisory, okay? Your criteria for making a decision is more limited than the county commissioners, all right? So at this stage of primary approval, some of the concerns and the concerns that the public have are gonna get worked through during plat committee. Okay, that's when the engineer gets more specific, construction plans are drawn, and the drawings are much more specific. But again, your authority on what you have, on which to base your decision is a lot more restricted than the county commissioners have once it gets to them. Okay?
All right.
So, for example, in the last one, without getting into the political end of it, that's kind of the point of having an advisory plan commission, trying to keep the politics and pressure out. So we're just looking at land view and just looking at the code. Okay? When it gets to the county commissioners, no comment.
Okay. I just want to kind of clarify it there for a few. Thank you.
The only thing, I think Glenn brought up a vital point of traffic. Severs is getting so busy now. You go on the other side, they're trying to limit them. And I think we ought to think about having common driveways instead of having single driveways, especially on Severs Road. It's going to be a lot of snow problems and highway problems and everything if everybody has their own outlet and inlet.
Alternatively, would you be concerned if they replatted lots 15 through 19 to where they expanded the frontage?
That's certainly the point, the spot where the frontage is compromised the most.
Yeah, I want to make sure the board's clear. You can put whatever conditions on your approval you want. You're really wide. You're not wide open on the criteria in which to make the decision, but you're pretty wide open on conditions.
Right.
Unfortunately, not at this point. I'm sorry.
As I said before, I passed out a handout tonight, which was actually a portion of the subdivision control ordinance, but it lists all the different requirements for particularly R1B, of course, R1A, R1C. And I think R1B, the minimum lot size would be 24,000. And we have, the lots on this subdivision are anywhere from 33,000 to almost 80,000. So, we're much larger than what the basic requirement would be. As far as driveways are concerned, that could be incorporated. I think Mr. Parker might be referring to maybe one driveway for 2 lots. I mean, that could be done, because you just build the driveway and then split it off. So that's really not a problem. So.
Well, the other thing that when you limit it, to that 200 foot of frontage, you're kind of, it's keeping its feel as it is right now, as it lies there now. When you start shrinking it up, I mean, that's where you're going to have more pressure from wildlife and everything else. So I don't know. I mean, they're all close except for that whole set on Severs Road. Otherwise, they're pretty close to conforming to the 200 feet.
For the essence of scale, if you take those 5 lots and resplit them into 4, It's 148 feet of frontage. If you split it to 3, it's 197. So if we start talking scale there, which is, both of those become very similar to what you see on Park Road and on 100 West.
So you're saying reduce the size of the lots?
Of those, of just
Increase the size of the lots along?
increase the width of those
Stevens
lots.
Road? Well, yeah, it's doable.
But that's just,
Probably end up losing a lot,
Or two.
but, you know, that's the chance you take.
It's like you said, this is all on a preliminary basis. I mean, as you start really diving into these lots, you may find that you do need a little more width because of the, you know, the slopes there along 100. I mean, you don't know until you really, you know, get in a little deeper on it, on the project.
Right.
Well, and to that point, I think that shifts it back to us as we're before you. We believe that we've met the requirements and we've met all of, you know, to use Mr. Wright's, the calculations. So, again, you're the decision makers and we have to abide by that. But to, as you say, and validly, you don't know till you get in there and there's some soil borings and some different things done and we think and we feel and there's some engineering done. But we're also potentially blindly committing to losing some as well, right? When they all could be viable and there could be alternatives such as Mr. Kyle suggested with the shared driveway, and does that alleviate overall? Because again, what I don't want to be lost here is the requirements of the code in general that must, and there can be other requirements and conditions that we have to do in making sure that we shield off the neighbors, and you know, they're right to look out for their properties, but that's assuming that we're here to be selfish and not do something that fits in the plan, and that's not the case. We haven't asked, and it's the first one that I've done in a long time that hasn't asked for waivers or some exceptions from here, or trying to get variances or do a PUD where we can run a little bit more wild. So I caution that, you know, I don't want to blindly have my client commit. You know, again, you're the decision maker, and when we yield to that and we respect that, but you know, again, there's a lot of process left to dole some of these out. But this is the decision that we need to have made to decide if we can invest more money and really get serious with plan.
I got a question. So Mike, you heard the people here that had concerns in regards to drainage and whatever else. Can you tell us your opinion on this development and whether you think, because I read the plat minutes and you guys talked at great length about, you know, a lot of the drainage issues. So in your opinion, would this, is this something that you would recommend and be able to work through some of the changes in the plat committee?
As far as drainage, yes, I was satisfied with the calculations in the drainage plan as presented by Mr. Kyle. The other comments that came up as far as wells and water supply, I don't have a comment on that part because I don't know. But as far as the stormwater calculations, the runoff and drainage plan, yes, I am satisfied with that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Just the last one. Are there wetlands on this, in this low areas?
That's not a lot. One in the corner, Stevers
Jim, you need the mic.
Mr. Kyle, would you mind repeating yourself into the mic, please?
If you can look up on the drawing there, it says not included. That's where that wetland is. That's that lower area. Yeah, I don't, the 25 is what we show right there. 25.07, I think. I don't know where the 28 might have come from, including that wetland down there up in the northwest corner.
And to clarify, so that nothing's misconstrued, nothing that is going to be developed or touched without, that it'll be outside of regulations or other requirements for wetlands. So that's the reason that those properties were intentionally excluded from these plants. So not being aloof when saying there aren't wetlands that are part of the development in the lots that are shown.
Of course, there was no way that we could build a house where that retention area is. I mean, it's just too low. So the ideal use would be, of course, for a retention area, as it is right now.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, now that we met some time ago in Plat Committee, I think during the discussion, you were deciding whether or not that corner with the wetlands was gonna be included or not included. Maybe we should take it out. That is probably where the acreage of discrepancy comes in, is that corner where the wetlands are.
And we would point out that the notice, obviously you have to defer to your client. The intention is to make those stakeholders in and around the area aware that this is happening. And that acreage is over-inclusive, better than under-inclusive. So again, no shift to try to be aloof or pull a fast one. In fact, what will be developed or built on for houses is less for those reasons.
Who will be taking care of that if you're taking it out? Who will be taking care of that corner? Who will be under, who will have,
Well, currently, it's Dr. Muller owns that property.
so he'll still have that
Yeah.
ownership
And,
of that?
and I thought what we would do with that, we did this out at Legacy Hills quite a few years ago, where we did 4 easements for retention areas out there that are off of the subdivision property itself. And that's what this would be. In other words, we'd have an easement for retention, which would be off of the subdivision, but it would still be subject to storing the stormwater. So once that plat's recorded,
The subdivision itself would not be taking care of that?
no.
It's not part of that, okay, that's all. Thank you. Well, I think we ought to okay it, but I would like to limit the size on Severs Road access.
Then what we got for motion, Mr. Parker?
Huh?
Is that a motion?
Yes, but I want them to take care of they got too many entrances on Severs Road right now.
What would you like to see?
You want to get rid of lots, or you want to have 2? You got way to run lots, one lot, you could have 2 driveways for the other 2 as combinations, so you're down to 2 instead of 5 driveways.
You can simply limit it to 15 through 19 becoming 3 lots, or when they come up with the final plot, that there are only 2 entrances is what you're saying.
Yes.
Whether they could they could come up with their own concept and create a shared drive as long as there were only 2 entrances, but otherwise it should be shrunk to 3 lots.
Well, lot 15 can use Park Street too.
It could be.
Yeah. The other thing with the shared driveways, just keep in mind that does cause conflict with lenders. So shared driveways become issues later as it goes down the road. So just a thought
Yep.
process there.
All I know is when we have country roads and we got too many entrances, we have too many problems. Everybody's got their own mailbox.
Yep.
And everybody's got, that's going to be a speedway there. There's no hiding that. That's commercial drive right now to get into the commercial area of the town, so.
I would rather see, some of the lots a little bit larger and concise them down to maybe 3 lots rather than the 5, rather than doing a shared driveway, but.
So amongst the 3 of you,
I'm ready to make something work, whatever you guys.
Well,
can I have a consolidated,
how about we establish the frontage number, rather than telling them how many lots to build, say, on Severs Road, frontage no less than, I don't remember what your calculation
number?
I had 148 and 197, depending on how many lots you went.
That's fine.
It's easier for me to draft and everybody follow.
All right.
197 would get 3 driveways, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Rita, does that work with the lenders?
Yeah, that would, as long as they all have their own separate driveways.
Well, just gonna take money to build, and we gotta know that the lenders are satisfied.
We could still limit that to 2, because one of them, 15, if they went 15 and part of 16, that could go out on Park Street. So you could still limit it to 2 on Severs Road.
That's just public safety. I travel that road, it gets traveled pretty heavy, you know, it's a thoroughfare to Michigan City or to LaPorte industrial area.
Yeah, but I mean, that's all the better. If we say that we're gonna limit 15 through 19 to 3 lots, and if they choose to make the entrance to the lot that is on Severs and Park Street, a Park Street entrance, so the better it is. It's not a requirement.
So all of that said, we've had a lot of discussion. I'm gonna.
How do you want to write
I
this?
want exactly. So if one of you would take a shot at trying to put this in a consolidated
You guys
motion.
good over there, your legal meagles that do all this paperwork? Okay.
I've lost track of what we're doing at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
197 feet frontage down to 3 lots.
Okay, did we include putting the driveway lot 15 on Park Street?
We could do that.
If possible, I think that would help the situation.
Okay.
Has anybody ever seen Amazon delivered to a driveway? That is the scariest thing in the world. They back right out in the middle of the roads and stuff. We want to limit some of that.
All right, do
So
we,
Mr. BG, what do you got?
so motion to approve, we're limiting the lot frontage to 197, or minimum 197 feet frontage
On Severs Road.
on Severs Road. Lot 15 is to have access to Park Street.
Preferred.
Preferred, it does, I'm not saying it has to at this meeting, but I think the word preferred is
Preferred, okay.
more flexible.
And are we limiting it to 2 driveways? Not clear.
No, I would
Leave it.
still say
Just
3.
frontage, right?
Yeah, okay, all right, got it.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Harold.
Kinda.
Way long time ago.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I don't know if you heard, I don't think you heard me.
So, all right, folks. All right. Second was
John,
John Con.
John second.
Motion passes. To petition number 2, petitioner Route 421 Partners LLC, represented by Matt Garetano of Charles Hendricks and Associates PC, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission for a 4-lot subdivision to be known as US 421 300 North Northwest Subdivision. Thank you.
Notice adequate.
Number 2?
Which one's next?
Adam, you wanna keep that in case you wanna allow it up there?
No. Okay.
Right here's low.
You wanna?
It had to be moved.
Oh, all right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, due to revision, we're going to start with alternate petition number 2. Petitioner Loves Travel Shops and Country Stores Incorporated, Loves, aka Rose Rock Holdings, represented by CESO Incorporated, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission a proposed PUD with fueling stations, convenience store, and restaurant, and a truck tire repair facility.
Everybody else off the table. We're gonna go back.
I would like to make a point of order here and ask that our acting president please instruct the building commissioner, that anytime there's a revision in the top right corner, put the revision in time and date so that everybody knows that we're not operating from two different agendas.
That's an excellent idea. I have the same problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl.
Okay.
We're waiting on. Mr. Beege? Are we good?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said it earlier, you probably didn't hear me. Notice adequate.
Thank you. Sir, if you'd state your name for the record?
My name is Frank Ille, I-L-L-E. Address is 10601 North Pennsylvania, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Do I need to wait for her to return or not?
No, okay.
Somebody left a phone over here and she's trying to track them down, so. I'm here on behalf of Love's Travel Stops. My civil engineer, Dave Tiber, is on the Zoom. He's with CESO, civil engineering firm. And we're here for, I believe, a preliminary and final approval of PUD for our future Love's Travel Center at I-94 and Highway 421. It'll be a full-service travel center. It's about a 12,000 square foot building. No, I think we increased the size of the building. I believe it's 15 now. A maintenance and tire shop, a couple of fast food restaurants. It'll be about a $20 to $22 million investment. We've been working on this for about 5 years. There's a pipeline easement running through that you all are probably aware of, and we have met with the pipeline company TC Energy. They gave us basically a charge or an amount that they think our development would increase their incremental costs over repair and maintenance for the future, and so we've agreed to that amount. We've paid that amount earlier this month, and now TC Energy is working on their plans and permitting for upgrading their pipeline to have a commercial development above it. Also, I'm sure you all are aware that water and sewer is being brought to this intersection, and that process has taken a long time too. So that's why we've been working on this thing for so long. We're hopefully at a place now where we can kind of see the finish line. And we've been committed to this project for this entire time. We've changed our site plan pretty drastically, and that was for the pipeline. That was to decrease the amount of paving over the actual pipeline, which would lower the cost that they gave us for incremental increases in R&M. So I'm here. I've been with Love's 27 years. I'll try to answer any questions you all have. I'll let Dave Tiber answer the technical questions. I can try to answer some operational questions if you have those. But we're excited about this project. We've run into a problem with the pylon sign, but that has nothing to do with the county. That's a state issue. So I'm trying to work through that, but that's not going to change our commitment to the project. So I don't know if I mentioned this would employ about 70 people.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Besides being a county commissioner on the redevelopment commission, I know we've been working on this, like you said, 5 years.
Yes,
You folks have been extremely patient for all of the bumps in the road that we've had to come over. We are already in the process of running sewer and water out there. That is active as we speak. If you've ever seen the Loves, I know you just opened up a new one, Highway 46 and I-95 in Florida. I go past it on the way to the condo. It's beautiful. It lights up the area. This will put a lot of people to work. This will add to future development in that area. It's already grown from what you first started with.
That's right.
And I don't see a lot of negativity here. I see a lot of positive things.
Thank you. I also want to commend Vladimir Gans and his group, the seller developer, they've been great to work with. They've been patient, and they had to do a lot of things to get a wetlands permit, and so it's been a collaborative effort for sure.
So, Mr. Illy, you mentioned that you're with Loves.
Yes, sir.
So you're not with Route 421 partners?
No.
Okay.
Well, you're gonna make this as good as every other love on kind of country, aren't you?
Yes,
or better.
It'll be better. When I said we increased the size of the building, this will be one of our, we call it a tier 0. The closest one to here might be Springfield, Ohio, but it's not very close. But it's a new building that we are doing now. This will be like our 12th tier 0 in the entire country, and we'll hit 600 stores later this year. So being in the top 12 of 600 is pretty special. We like this location.
Mr. Illy, do you have a general contractor that you normally work with?
We have about 10 of them that travel around the country and bid on our projects. So we have not bid this one out yet. We need to get our approvals first. And we would, because of the pipeline and their timeline, it's going to take them to get permits and then do the actual upgrade of the pipes. We will try to start this construction in April of 2023.
The only thing I ask is that you reach out to local contractors and get plenty of bids from them.
70% of the actual work is done by local contractors. The GC always bids out things locally. I think the mill work and something else are done kind of by a couple companies that travel around the country and follow us, but everything else is bid out locally. All the dirt work and all that stuff. Fuel work.
What are they asking from us?
If I could jump in here real quick.
Yes, sir.
This, I believe, is their third time before us, and the reason that they're coming back this time is because after the prior approval from this board, there was a change in the plan that increased the floor space by 20%. In our joint zoning ordinance, the building commissioner only has discretion up to 5%. So since it was a 20% change, it exceeded the discretionary authority of my office, required them to come back here, and that's why they're here tonight.
That's the 12,000 square foot building to 15,000 that I talked, the tier 0.
And Loves is going to develop all that, the restaurants and everything?
Yes, sir.
If there's not anything else, if you can have a seat, we'll ask for any remonstrators and then get into discussion. So at this time, if there are any remonstrators for or against this project, please come forward.
Hearing none, I would make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation to the commissioners.
I would second that. Or
You have a motion and a second.
Harold second. I defer to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Good luck.
Motion passes.
Enjoy Indiana while you're here.
The armpit of America.
It's not snowing, so.
Moving on to petition number 3. Petitioner Route 421 Partners LLC, represented by Matt Garetano of Charles Hendricks and Associates PC, respectfully petitions the Plan Commission for a 4-lot subdivision to be known as US 421 300 North Northwest Subdivision.
Notice is adequate.
Otis Road.
Thank you. Just pass them down.
Yes, please.
Sure. That's fine. There's not.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Garitano from Charles Hendricks and Associates Surveying and Engineering here in LaPorte. Our offices are at 512 Lincoln Way. What you have in front of you is like the petitioner packet stated. It's a 4-lot major subdivision at the northwest corner of County Road 300 North and US 421. This 4-lot subdivision would be served by dedicated roads, so public roads built to county specs. Will be served, like Mr. Mrzinski said, from city sewer and water, which is being developed as we speak. And that's basically it. It's going to be the continuation or the backside of Love's at a 4-lot major. Does anybody have any questions?
I think that's what we're working to right now.
Okay.
There we are.
Figuring out your paperwork.
Gentlemen, for the question you were asking earlier, it's the southwest cloverleaf of I-94. Just to the north of Love's lot.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yep.
Right.
So from what I see here, you're serviced off of 300 North and off of the, I'll call it a cul-de-sac or roundabout into the Love's property and around the west side of the lot up towards, we'll call it rounded corner, cloverleaf lot. Okay.
That's correct. At a 60-foot publicly dedicated right-of-way with, like I said, county specs, everything would be under the criteria for LaPorte County.
Any immediate questions from the board?
Anybody, are you just going to develop, or do you have any buyers yet, or are you just
This would be
speculative?
I don't have any knowledge or information as far as any potential buyers. Obviously, this is still in the planning phases. After this phase would be the construction plans for the road. So we're not at that phase yet, or that step of the process yet.
One of the selling points of when we first started talking about Love's is that once that goes there, it's going to bring a lot more development to that area, which means it's going to put a lot more people to work, a lot more assessed value for the county. This is spawning from Love's, and this is what we had predicted and we're hoping for.
Right. So, like I said, it's short, it's sweet, but basically what we're suggesting or what we're requesting, respectively requesting, is a 4-lot major. And what this is currently zoned is B3. Now, in addition to the 4-lot major, we are requesting some use variances within the JZO. Those use variances are, as shown on the packet that I have on the backside on the 8.5 by 11. So that's what we're asking for, respectfully.
So, Mr. Bijou, are we rolling petitions 3 and 4 together at this point, or are we keeping them separate? Excuse me. That was the original petition, or that was the original agenda. We'll stick with this. All is one.
Yeah,
I think Forest is a completely different area.
No. When we looked at the original agenda that we were talking to previous to the meeting.
Yeah, I had some discussion with Matt and Tony, and we determined it would be better to combine them because the board can't grant the variances on use, but I think it's better if it's within their request for the subdivision. So that
makes
my
sense.
suggestion.
So take them from 2 and make them 1.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So, Mr. Garitano, if you'd have a seat, we'll quick ask for any remonstrance for or against.
Thank you.
there any remonstrators for or against this project?
Yes. This on? Yep. My name is Dan Irk. I live at 10144 West, 300 North, right across from this subdivision they're speaking of. And he's not too clear on what's going in here as far as what kind of housing is going to be. Is it going to be?
This is commercial. This is entirely commercial.
Commercial?
Yes.
They're houses, not houses.
So it's not going to be like a subdivision?
Nope. It's a piece of property being subdivided, but to 4 separate plots for business purposes. So
Business purposes, not housing.
Correct.
He's got 3 100,000 square feet warehouses and a 50,000 square feet.
Okay. He wasn't handing out those to the people out there, so.
That might.
I understand the confusion based on subdividing. Yeah. You didn't have to copy that.
Okay, I'll study this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other remonstrators for or against? Any questions or discussion from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion for a favorable recommendation to the commissioners?
I'll make that a motion.
Sounds like I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I would recommend a motion on the use variance request also.
As an amendment or a second motion?
Second motion is fine.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the use variance.
And I will second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Petition passes.
Say something real quick. Well, I just want to say thank you to LaPorte County. I mean, this has been a 4 or 5 year process that's been complete pain, and you guys have been side by side with Loves and Route 421, and we really appreciate that.
Much appreciate what you, yeah.
Vladimir Gans, Route 421 Partners, 436 Sand Creek Drive, Chesterton, Indiana. But again, you guys have been right there with us, and we couldn't have done it without the support of this whole community, and we really appreciate it a great deal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to petition number 4. Petitioner Meadow Creek Development LLC, represented by Matt Garitano of Charles Hendrickson Associates PC, respectfully petitions the Planning Commission to rezone from B2 to R1A, a parcel located east of Otis Road.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You're handing out another.
Under recommendation from council, we'll also roll in petition number 5, Meadow Creek Development LLC, represented by Matt Garitano of Charles Hendrickson Associates PC, respectfully petitions the Planning Commission for a 4-lot subdivision to be known as Otis Road Sub, located east of Otis Road.
It's out there by, what do they call that? You know.
Next to the church.
Yeah.
All right.
Doesn't show.
No, it's short of it. It doesn't get that far.
Well, how in the hell am I supposed to keep up?
So this east or west of Otis?
My name is Matt Garitano, Charles Hendrickson Associates. Our office is at 512 Lincoln Way. Yeah, that's east of Otis Road. So
Not quite to the church.
because I've handed them all out, but try to go off memory here. We're talking a 4-lot minor served from Otis Road. You know, no new roads being done. This is a agricultural field. The first petition obviously being the rezoning. We want to rezone this R1A, I believe is what the petition states. It's currently zoned business. It is not presently attached to that parcel that is east of the Isaac Walton League property, closer to 421, which is zoned business. We want to get this to residential, which is more in congruent with what the area is. All the lots are going to be 200-foot frontage or larger. The the lot sizes are going to be double, if not triple, what's required for LaPorte County. These lots will be served by private septics and wells. And we have the soil reports into LaPorte County Health Department. It sounded like from Soil Solutions that they were going to be fine with septic systems, possibly some perimeter drains, but there's plenty of fall on the property, and we don't really see anything else. We're just trying to fill in what is an isolated agricultural, tilled field to be more of what the area is.
Right, to farm it. So where's the water going?
So behind, with the lot sizes being double, if not triple, the size of what we're minimum required to put in, most of this water, once it becomes grass and developed, it's going to be far less runoff than the agricultural field. Now, behind this property, we have the very large gorge. And, we did a calculation this afternoon. If we were to make hard surface this entire project at 1 million gallons, the gorge, if it was full, is 25 million gallons. So even after the water comes off the developed sites and the driveways and everything and percolates through the soil for the lots, there isn't going to be any kind of a surface runoff onto the other lots. The lots are
So is this clay or sand based?
Would you like to look at the soil report?
Well, I know the area, so it's either yellow clay or it's sand.
Yeah, I don't know what specific type of soil is in here. I can get the soil report if you'd like to take a look at it. But like I said, acceptable for septics with some perimeter drains. We have plenty of fall.
The Otis
We
tap.
shouldn't have any issue with the seasonal high water table.
We're just gonna do it all as one.
Yeah.
We're wrapping it. Mr. Garatano, while we're reviewing the soil report, we'll ask for remonstrators and.
Mr. President, if I would recommend, if council agrees, that you call for remonstrators separately on those two last agenda items, since they were agended separately, just to keep everything.
Agreed. So, to the agenda, I'll ask for remonstrators for or against relative to the rezoning of the property from B2 to R1A. Any remonstrators for or against? Hearing none, we'll move on to the second part. I'm asking for remonstrators for or against the subdivision of this property to be known as Otis Road Sub. Any remonstrators for or against?
My name is Karen Peters. I am a property owner just due west of Otis Road. The address there is 1202 South Otis Road, Westville, Indiana, 46391. My concerns would be, I believe the area there is clay. It is not sand. There's a lot of water ways through there. There's a lot of wetland. My concern would be is where does this water run? Because our connection to Reynolds Creek runs through our property. And then that subsequently goes under the Indiana Tow Road, due north toward, would be west of Otis. So that's one of my concerns. I would want to know what would be happening with that waste water in the area and how soon this project would be. The other concerns, I know that came out earlier about the wildlife in the area. It has got a lot of wildlife out there. I'm sure you've seen it. There's a lot of deer. So one of my concerns has always been is maintaining our property west of that area. We've been pretty private there for a long time. And we've had people trespassing And it can be anywhere from the neighbors to anybody who just decides, I want to get out and take a walk on the property. Very much disrespectful in the area. We've had things happen there with some DNRs that we had to call for deer hunters. They just feel they can come out and hunt the property and it's not even theirs. So, but we contact DNR when it's necessary. But one of my concerns would be the waterways. It is wetland west of Otis Road. And we've got our property pretty well maintained there. I'm not opposed to some housing going there. There is housing there. So, but I am wanting to know about the drainages and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garitano, if you would. So if I can paraphrase a little bit, it seemed the biggest concern was with any water runoff from the properties, where does that go?
Yeah, that the runoff from these sites is going to stay contained on site. There isn't going to be any runoff that's going over Otis Road and west past the abandoned railroad. The size of the lots is to mitigate that. Like I said, with it being agriculturally farmed ground right now, once we get the grass and it gets seeded in and once the property is developed, you're going to see considerably less runoff. So
The contours aren't labeled on the drawing. I can't tell if it's going up or down.
okay, I can show you. I can't. Yeah, so it's
Understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
One last question. I'm sure the department heads, you had a meeting with the department heads.
Yeah, the technical advisory committee. Yeah.
There's a lot of contours on the road, and I was wondering about like sight distance along the road for driveways and things.
Yeah, there wasn't.
All discussed and.
Yeah, there was plenty of sight distance. It's congruent, like I said, with the other existing residential homes there. It all goes downhill, but it's wide open.
Any other questions from the board?
I do have one request. If granted a favorable recommendation, I do have a full-size print. If possible, if we could get signatures today from the Planning Commission, respectfully.
What kind?
The signature for the plat.
That Doug, doesn't it normally go in front of the commissioners?
Yeah, just for the favorable recommendation portion, not for the entirety of the plat. You still have secondary plat. So you have the plan commission portion. Is that not?
Well, I usually draft findings, and then I have the president sign the findings. normally.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
We don't want to take Doug out anywhere.
No.
It's called billable hours anyway. You looking for a motion?
Hearing no further questions, I entertain a motion.
Motion for a favorable recommendation.
I'll second that.
So motion and a second. All in favor for this is a, are we looking for the rezone on this motion and the subdivision?
Yeah, I was gonna do, you want them separate?
Doug, what do you recommend? Put them together, so if you would clarify just a little bit.
Okay.
You don't want two?
Yeah, for both then.
For both?
Yeah.
And the second is for both?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For both.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
That it?
Any other comment or discussion from the board? Anything new we need to discuss? Do we have any old? Where's my, thank you. Any old business? Old business. Zoning classification for parcels, 46709 100 Oh, what is this?
What is that?
I got, but first of all, I don't know why I always get to talk during old business, but here I am again. All right, so I think I mentioned to the planning commission a few months back that we noticed there were three parcels, I believe.
Yeah, did they get fixed automatically?
No.
State your name.
So,
Tony Hendricks, LaPorte County Surveyor.
yeah, so what we did, we went back to check to see if it might have fallen off on GIS. It didn't. Or maybe it did right before they printed the maps off when Mitch and I were working on the maps. Either way, we have three parcels that don't have any zoning. So Ashley was good enough to contact the property owners. They all prefer ag, right?
Yes.
There's no procedure in the code or in the zoning code as to how to handle this. So I would recommend we just pass a motion to be included in the minutes that's what the designation would be. Then we'll get that to GIS, so that'll show up on Beacon and the zoning maps as agricultural. Because right now it's just a white spot, and I just don't. It's cleanup. Is basically what this is.
I just came in front of you to tell you what we think, because that threw me for a loop when Doug said that. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. We did a lot of work, and we had every parcel zone, and Mitch did a great job, and we double checked everything. It didn't make any sense. And then that petition that came for you for the Kessling property didn't have zoning either. It was blank. And I didn't understand why. And so I pulled up 2011 GIS shapefile, and every parcel had some zoning in it, because I still had it from Mitch. And then I called Mike O, GIS director, and said, what's going on here? Parcels are losing their zoning. Well, as splits happen in the county, the shapefile was indexed to the parcel ID number, and it was a separate shapefile. It wasn't in the parcel file for the zoning. So I want to give kudos out to Mike O for doing that for us. I called him up and said, yeah, a couple days out of that fix. So he indexed all the zoning in the shapefiles to the parcel shapefile, and now the parcel shapefile holds the zoning as a key index field. So when Don at the real estate office, and again, thanks to Don at the real estate office, now if something splits, she makes sure that the split holds the same zoning it was. So we shouldn't be dropping off zonings anymore. It was a strange technical thing, and we finally realized it, and Michael fixed it. It's awesome, because the parcel that Kessling came in front of was a B2, didn't have a zoning, and he actually had it fixed because Mitch just showed me, so he fixed it. It's very good, thanks to Mike O for all his work he does for us.
I thought it was a rush.
Motion to approve the zoning to ag for all three parcels 46-07-09-100-022, all three parcels.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And if there are no objections, I don't think this needs to go to the county commissioners, because it's more or less administrative anyway. So.
Agreed. New business. Any new business? Mr. Building Commissioner.
Mr. President, let's briefly touch on lithium battery storage. Just to update the plan members that were not aware of last week's meeting and the state reps report and where we're at with that. So basically, that was that tabled or denied at the BZA?
It was postponed indefinitely based on a task group that's been assigned through state legislature and the governor. They're meeting in September to potentially come up with some verbiage for a bill to be looked at during the session after the first of the year, and to potentially have something that is passed and enacted as early as July, unless there's some emergency state that's tagged to it, which could make it as early as April. But basically, the motion was to postpone indefinitely.
So we expect their task force to come up with something that the county can follow and emulate. And ahead of that, I mean, we were really scrambling, kind of like we did with the solar ordinance, to get ahead of things before they just come here and we're being reactionary. In fact, Rita and I and Jeff Hamilton from Hazmat and some fire and EMS people and other technical people, we all put a lot of time and effort into learning about lithium battery storage real quick to get prepared for what we had in front of us. But now it seems we're going to have even more time with state authorities weighing in on it too. So I'm comfortable where we're at on that.
Just to add a little more detail to it, the largest operating battery storage system that's in the state of Indiana right now is 20 megawatts. The proposed system was over 500 at max capacity. So it's definitely a trailblazing endeavor with a lot of questions associated with it, and that's why we need to get some more experts involved, and that makes more sense to get the state involved, or let the state start to define it further for us.
In addition to that, we're gonna be getting into EV charging stations, Tesla charging stations. Those are coming. So if the board has any brainstorming or ideas or anything that you guys want to discuss to get ahead of that, I think we have similar uses in our JZO now, but if there's anything that we need to do to tweak that up, that would be something to consider maybe for our next meeting.
If I may, Mr. President, from what I can see so far, I don't think we need to modify or amend any of the code. But it's so new, I don't have a lot of information. So if anybody has information from their individual organizations, please get it to me, because this is brand new and there's not much out there. And what is out there is very, very technical. And look, I gotta meet somebody at my place to replace the battery and the fire alarm at my condo when we're done. So you don't want to rely on my expertise, okay? But so far, I'm not thinking we need to change anything. But there might be something out there that we're not aware of.
Okay.
I thought I saw an article come across today that Kokomo is getting one of these battery storage facilities, like 1.3 billion cost.
I think that would be an interesting read to share with the whole group, no matter who in the group would come across anything like that, to share it, and we could even get more familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the wisdom that Pressel brought before us was we don't even know who's going to oversee these projects. I think you guys did a fantastic job of moving quickly to try and, it was a $150 million project these people were offering LaPorte. But when the state doesn't even know who's going to oversee something like this, we didn't include IDEM, which if they make a law and says IDEM is going to have oversight on a BSS location, then, what we did was all in vain anyway.
Yeah.
And we need that.
I agree with you completely, with the caveat that we have a solar ordinance. The legislature promised us a solar ordinance a few years ago. So I'm keeping it in the back of my mind. We may end up having to handle this ourselves, because it may not get through the legislature. And I know I respect Mr. Pressel and in the process, but sometimes it doesn't get done in a year.
Well, the other thing he brought to us was, their committees on energy, they're being reactive all the time. They've talked about not decommissioning plants that were set for decommission, and just making sure that this sort of a thing is a necessary part of the grid, is part of the picture that we don't see, that we need to have oversight from somebody else, because it wasn't an IPSCO project. It was an individual company investor that was doing this.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks for being so patient.
Thank you, folks. Any other new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay. They all want to hang
All in
out.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They all want to hang out.
Thank you.
Good job, Adam.